you pay anything, you know. And we said, why should all these levels of leadership, you know, offer bursaries? In fact, she was the one who was saying, now I need to go to, I don't know, to do valuation, to do what, assessment, whatnot. Why should a member of parliament do that? And I remember I said, when we started the CDF ourselves, because it started when we were members of parliament many years ago, bursaries were not there. The only thing we were doing for education was building classrooms, period. So bursaries came in as a result of changes that members of parliament initiated within the House. So going forward, I think now this is accepted generally, that, you know, we shouldn't have the MCAs, women rep, all these people giving bursaries, governors, president, whatnot. What we should have is free education for free, real. Because remember, there's a cost when you transfer money to whatever, there's a cost of transferring. Yeah. And that is also eating into the fund itself. So for me, I think Treasury should take administrative action. Treasury should take administrative action, and I know Bandi might be listening to this. They should take administrative action. Simply deny funds that were meant to go for CDF, you know, and send them directly to the targeted schools. You know, just come up with a model, activate it, you know, and then along the way, the changes that need to be done should be done. But the policy must be clear. There should be a very clear announcement on policy that from going forward, no more bursaries from governors, from what. No more bursaries. The entire fund is going to go to schools directly. And if the minister does that, everybody else will fall in place.
I get to hear you. Thank you.
I would wish to add something to what Mheshimiwa said. You see, about, you know, the level of dishonesty in this country is so wanting, in the sense that we do not understand, especially on these banned things. Because let's say, for example, I'm the one who's in charge of that. I don't know even how the public participation was done, because you find most of the band 1, they're in band 5, the band 5s are in band 1. You see, there was that mix-up. I don't think even the criteria of trying to come up with these band things, was the worst undoing, because Kenyans were not honest to begin with, and then we believe, quote unquote, leadership ni soko ya muda, because even right now, even Mheshimiwa, you know that come 5 years somebody will be racing you for your seat. So it's like you want to do everything within the 5 years. So the level of the way we want to be selfish and do things for the people we call our own, it is so high. So we are, okay, this could be a very good system, the band thing, but the level of dishonesty in Kenya cannot allow that to happen, because even the people who are initiating the public participation and get information that will make them make decisions on which band you belong to, they are also wanting, those ones who are leading the exercise. So I support what Mheshimiwa said. Can we have, like, education, go to school,
and that is a discussion out there.
And
to
go to school,
all the bands.
learn for free. And then I don't think maybe part of the CDF, or it's only for education. And then, but the part of the bursaries and what have you should be put in a common kitty, or to go straight to schools, so that when you are going to university, and then there's this issue, confusion of hostels. You see, these hostels, let's talk about Nairobi University. These hostels have been there for day in, day out, day in, day out. So they are not on any loan. They are not on any issues. But right now, they are being so commercialized until our children are going to stay in, like you see now you are renting a house for your son or daughter in a place, in an environment whereby it is husbands and wives fighting day and night. So it is also interfering with the learning environment, because we are not able to have our children in a place, like in a learning atmosphere, whereby they wake up and go to school like it used to happen. If there are less hostels, so the money for development, where can't it come up with hostels, so that our children, when they are going to university, they can go learn for free, stay for free, at least the food they can be able to pay for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is also reflected on the front page of the Standard, crisis in schools. That is on the front page. That is what you have here on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Daily Nation and the Standard, more or less the same thing. Crisis in schools, whereas primary school teachers will be in school today, their secondary school colleagues have vowed to stay away. This coupled with the risk of mpox, all right, parents struggling with fees and administrators disgruntled with capitation, a return to school has been complicated. Now, that is also here. You can take a look at what is on the front page of the Standard as well. My vision for Africa, Raila now readies bid. Kenya faces US wrath over Starlink. There was that conversation yesterday on social media on one of the telecom companies in Kenya trying to raise some red flag over the arrival of Starlink to supply network in the country. President's men, Mudavadi Haji, now sit at high table. Take a look at that story as well. And debt misery for Ruto as credit rating drops again. The government faces higher borrowing costs after a third global rating agency downgraded Kenya's credit rating. This complicates planning and debt repayment. That is what we have here. Very quickly, on the front page of the Star, counties cash crisis. Counties cash crisis. The Lu in me almost came out loud. Almost. Counties cash crisis. Governors up in arms. Governors up in arms. Lots of suppliers did jobs and were supposed to be paid, but I need to be paid. That is according to Mutula. I guess this must be Senate Governor Mutula Kilozo. Governor Sakaja says that city forced to abandon development pay salaries. This is what's on the front page of the Star newspaper. Some good news to our soldiers in Haiti. Kenyan cops get new 24 armored cars. Sometimes last week they raised an issue of lack of these armored personnel, and now they received 24 of them from the US. Perhaps it's going to also bolster the operation in that issue. All right, Cooper digs in, but not calls off teachers' strike. Again, we've discussed on that. Also pulling all stops to face Ruto in 2027 polls. And finally, inside Odinga's 8-point plan for Africa AU inquest. Allow me to ask you this, Mheshimiwa. What's our probability of Kenya clinching the position, not Raila, but Kenya clinching the position of AU chairmanship?
I also happen to sit as the head of the delegation of the Pan-African Parliament, which means that those of us who are elected, that is myself, Professor Kamar, Honorable Pasaris, Majimbo Kalasinga, and Mheshimiwa Mokami, we are representing Kenya at the African Parliament. Okay, so you are elected and then elected again by colleagues.
Yeah.
So what I will tell you is that initially there were challenges about this candidature. Because in our last sitting, you know, we talk a lot. Those who have also presented candidates, they will tell you, oh, we are doing this and that. But the African politics are such that for you to get to succeed, you need to be very aware of the blocks. They are the Francophone blocks, the Anglophone blocks, the Islamic or the Arabic-speaking blocks, who tend to be very united. So you need to know how to run around that politics. I'm giving this background so that people can understand that it's not about how good you are, actually, how qualified you are. Yeah. It's how you maneuver and negotiate your position around these blocks. For example, the West African, the Francophone bloc, it has a lot of people, a lot of states, because the states in West Africa are very few. You'll find Gabon, you'll find Equatorial Guinea, Sierra Leone, two small states, but they have a vote, a single vote. And so if we are to vote directly, you'll find the vote of West Africa is very, very large. Okay? That is why in the African Union, a principle has been adopted that you need to circulate the leadership so that if it is in the southern side, the next leader will come from the eastern, the next will come from the central, and so on. Because if people are to vote like that, you'll find small countries, when they come together, they'll always have the leadership. And that's the model we have adapted also in the African Parliament, which we call it Pan-African Parliament. So going back to Raila's candidature, it started with a lot of doubts, because at that time the Arabs and the Francophone had sort of like banded together, and they were pushing that Djibouti guy was a very strong candidate. But I have seen that he has withdrawn, I think, if I'm not wrong, and a few other candidates who are on the plate who have also pulled out. And you see, when somebody withdraws and then endorses another candidate, it means that support that was going to be split is coming to your side. So I think I've seen one or two candidates who have endorsed Honorable Raila Odinga. This has increased his chances, okay? But we still have to work very hard. Now, having William Ruto on your side is a very big asset. Because President Ruto is highly respected within the African continent, and his word really matters. So, and I know his networks are very good. So I think they will be talking to many people. And so, in short, the candidature of Raila Odinga is a formidable one as we speak now, because of some of the backroom negotiations that are happening that I'm aware of, and some of the people who have gone to withdraw their candidature and endorsed him. Those are significant developments. And also, you know, he has served in the African Union before as the High Representative for Infrastructure. So he's aware of what happens there. So I think Africa will get a good candidate and a good AUC chairman.
All right.
Yeah.
Good point. I had to give him that position so that he can also get us, being the fact that he's also sitting in the Pan-African Parliament. I hope we're going to get it, and Kenya will also enjoy some sort of, you know, warmth in that corner. All right. So there is this issue of counties. It's also forming part of our discussion today, because now governors are up in arms. They say they don't have money and they are not able to continue with the developments. They have actually abandoned some of the developments according to Sakaja, and now what is now remaining, they cannot even pay salaries. So devolution at 14, and now governors are still crying that they don't have money for development. At this particular point, let me take a quick break, and we come back. We'll be circling back to our substantive discussion, Kenya devolution at 14. Okay, Sawa. So let's now pick it up. Where were you 14 years ago? Yeah, you watching me. Where were you 14 years ago? When the late President Mwai Kibaki promulgated the new constitution at Uhuru Park, where were you? What are some of the memories? And before then, what are some of the things that perhaps you left behind and are now here with us? A big question. Wakili is joining me. Wakili says he came from Kilifi. What time did you wake up?
You have to be woken up by the...
You teleported yourself?
Yeah.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. So today marks 26th day, tomorrow being a very important day in the Kenya's calendar, 14 years later, and we've made gains. Allow me to begin with the only lady with us today. Daktari, so we are here. What do you make of the Katiba at 14?
According to me, some things have worked, others have not worked. And I don't think it is, even with the 14 years, I don't think the devolution we were looking at has worked according to what it was supposed to work. Because there are some devolved services like nurses, the ECD teachers, and then there's still some confusion in out who takes care of this, who takes care of that. And I believe the first 10 years they were dealing with the teething problems. There were a lot of loopholes at the point. I think the government lost a lot of money in the first 10 years, especially the first 5 years, because systems were not yet in place and tested and looked at as a working system. So we just went in like a tester. So the government, I think a lot of money was lost. I think, and then the second term, that was when it was going to the 10 years, is when things were trying to streamline. And then I think now this, at this point, right now, is when systems are in place. That is why we are finding that the places where finances are supposed to be applied, the finances are scarce. So I think the teething problem is not still over, and it's still not clear. It's still not very clear.
Yeah.
You know, if you ask me from where I sit. Because there's a time we have been having a doctor's strike, and then it came up with, you know, I don't understand why the ECD teachers, they are teachers in the teaching fraternity. Why would they be involved? Why would they belong to the county government? Why can't anybody who is teaching belong to one place? You know, that's my argument.
Yeah.
According to me, some things have worked, some things have not, and but it can be fixed.
It can be fixed.
Yeah.
Mark, when you look at the entire system, you know, somebody would say, actually, it's argued that the constitution we have right now is the best, the most progressive so far. And can we take that, you know, pride and walk with our shoulders high, as far as that is concerned?
Thank you. I think now we are at 14 years since we got the new constitution. And there has been a lot of successes and also some failures. But if you look at the successes, I think our constitution was one of the best. If you look at the current day constitutions we have in different countries, we cannot rely too much on the failures, because if you look at what the county governments are doing, they are doing quite a commendable job. And the only issue has always been the funding, because if you look at the current setup where the percentage of the national revenue collection is going to the counties, it has never been enough. And what has always been the major issue, as if you look at the counties, has always been the issue of some of them, not all of them, the issue of corruption. So I think the constitution we have is not that bad. We only need to relook at some of the things that can be amended, so that we can have a better one. Because we never have there is nowhere in the world where you can have a perfect constitution. It's always a progressive process where you amend and you get good ideas. So if I look at the whatever we have at the moment, I can say we have done quite a lot to our people, because you look at the devolved units like education, the county governments are doing well. You look at the infrastructure, some of the things could not be done by the national government, like small drips down there at the village have been done by the county government. So I think if we want to improve on what we have now, we can look at the funding. We need to have more funds to go to the county government.
It's one of the biggest
reduce
issues, actually.
most of the spending from the central government, because we cannot continue to say that we are having devolved units, and at the same time we are not giving them money. You look at what we are having today. Most of the counties now are unable to pay their suppliers, simply because there is that delay of transferring the money to the counties. So I think we need to look at some of those things so that we can have smooth running of our devolved units.
Great.
Yeah.
Senator, you have you are part and parcel of the process way back then, and on that particular day at Uhuru Park, what rings at the back of your mind? I mean, let's just go back 14 years later, down memory lane. You know, the entire Africa was at Uhuru Park. We had Some of them are no more, but wherever they are, including President Mwai Kibaki, were you at Uhuru Park to start with? Take us down memory lane at that particular point, when the president had his seal on that new constitution. What ran through your mind? Give us a bit of that history, what it was.
All right. I was part of the select committee for the Naivasha negotiations of the constitution. At that time, the country was divided. There were people who believed that we should have a unitary state, and others who believed that we should have a devolved system of government. And even that devolved system, there were others who said, let us maintain the provinces and we have just 8 governors.
Yeah.
Other people felt that no, we need to have 13 units. And we negotiated that issue in Naivasha. And remember, we were members of parliament from the government side ourselves, and the other guys who are Akina Orengo and so on, who are on the other side. And we were trying to come up with a model so that we can present to Kenyans that we, as your leaders, we have struck a deal, that this is going to be the kind of government we are going to run. And there were debates. Should we elect the president as the head of state directly, or should we have a president who is elected after elections are held?
Yes.
There's a leader of a party that has majority or a coalition of majority, and they elect the president. So we have a strong prime minister and a weakened head of state. So all these debates, one thing we agreed upon was that let us give the Kenyan person the right to choose his president, not his president to be chosen by members of parliament, sitting in the house and choosing. That's number one. The other thing we agreed was we must have devolution, and we must take resources down to the people. This thing of Nairobi controlling everything must come to an end. So it was just the mechanics of it. And when the deal was struck, we were all very, very happy, because we are all worried what is going to happen in the country. And I remember when we went to see the then president to tell him that this is what has happened, his view was that there are many people who still think this constitution is not perfect. And you are saying that you have something working. Now, his words, I am too happy for anyone to make me sad again because of this constitution. He said, let us start with this 80% that is good. That 20%, you people will fix it when your time comes. So even as we were going into that, we knew that there were some imperfections about it. But it was a very good moment for all of us, especially those of us who come from the other side of Kenya, And I'll tell you this. We saw the first tarmac in our county headquarters, Hola, in Tana River County, with the coming of the devolution. We saw street lights with the coming of devolution. We saw big markets with the coming of devolution. We saw literally a town growing, and various towns, drainage systems, things working with the coming of devolution. So we've had challenges, of course. We've had 2 governors. The first one went, and then there's the second one who is serving the second term now. We've had our own challenges. But I can tell you, anytime devolution and anytime more money to the counties, there's the question of mismanagement of funds and misuse of funds.
Yes.
That should be treated as a different issue. And we have failed there, let me just say, because I believe that governors, a number of them now, should be in jail. In Nigeria, they jailed several of them, and then some discipline came in, But in Kenya, we don't have any governor who has been jailed, and we all know the story of the theft that is there. Honorable Kajwang is our chairman Senate chairman for the Public Accounts Committee. And every time these governors come and we are going through the processes, you see this 100 million has not been accounted. This, you know, we sit there and he even says, in other jurisdictions, you should be not answering me, but you should be seated in the cell there, down in this building, waiting for police to collect you. You know, you people are committing crimes. I remember him visiting a certain county and sitting there and saying, look, this Senate committee declares this county a crime scene because of the things that we have seen in this area, and yet the governors continue to stay there. So in terms of the discipline, I think we need some twisting of the Constitution to allow more powers to the Senate, so that Senate can give some temporary orders against officers who are obviously found doing something wrong within the systems that we have. Because we are supposed to oversight them.
I'll come back to that.
And I think for me, that is where the big failure is.
That is actually part of my discussion, because Senate being the key prefect to this constitution. I will ask you a direct question, perhaps later on. Whether Senate has achieved its mandate as the prefect of this constitution, the oversight, oversighting the governors and all that. And you've said that some of the governors should be in jail right now. Who should we blame? Senate or the investigating bodies, the EACC, etc., all that. But hold on that. Let me get the voice of Wakile. Wakile, what's first again? Good morning.
Good morning.
14 years later, we are here. You've had that background check from the senator. He played a key role there. I know you also, your input was also, can also be felt in this discussion. But look at it holistically. Are we there?
Well, I would think it really depends on how one looks at it in terms of the milestone and the misses.
Right.
The Independence Constitution was fixing a very different problem. Those that negotiated the Independence Constitution had two issues. One is to take care of an environment that was oppressive from would be a foreigner, the white man, and trying to put into place a movement of a people that they will call a country, smarting from a lot of oppressive issues that were in the mind at that time. So the national psyche, I think, was imbued in a very different situational issue to deal with at the time. And it was therefore a reaction to that environment. When we, as now the African government or movement, formed ourselves into, in fact, we imported a lot of those colonial laws by enabling them to continue operations in that Independence Constitution. And fast forward, therefore, we went and we continued with the basically legal regime as was as at the time, and therefore prominent to abuse and misuse as was felt. So many things happened. The struggle continued now in terms of trying to put into structures the political space for everyone, representation, marginalization, of course corruption and all other things that obviously once in a while were tantrums by the citizenry as against those that were in leadership at the time. No structures of independent institutions such as judiciary, captivity of the representation in parliament by state, and I think overarching of the state itself. So that had to be fixed. When I think we had the time, the constitutional moment, something had to give in, and it did. As Mheshimiwa Mungatana has aptly represented here. Now, at the time, we were now fixing a different problem. And I would say we were reacting to the space that had been abused from the Independence Constitution to where we were. We imported quite very little from the Independence Constitution, but more of it was the experience of the life that we lived as Kenyans. That's why basically the drafting principle of that constitution was more of a mischief.
But is it reflected 14 years later?
Yes. And fast forward to where we are, therefore, is that there is quite a lot that has changed in terms of the space that we needed. There was more stress on governance issues, but on matters to accountability, although there's a lot of stress in the provisions, the institutions, the institutional mechanism upon which that would be realized, I think is either a problem because we may have not gotten it right, or the alternatively is the problem is the people that are put into place for that very good purpose. By the way, good laws are good because then they form the relationship, they inform the relationship and basically regulate the relationship in terms of conduct, character and all that. But sometimes you don't even need a constitution to have a good country. You may not need it. Some countries don't have constitutions and are the best examples of democracies we have in this world. So merely having a good paper called a constitution in itself does not guarantee you a good life, the rule of law, and all the products of that which you aspire as society. What you need is the discipline of the people. So where we need to go now is the discipline of the people that take up leadership and the controls that we put into place as a society. There are people in this world, when mentioned with corruption, they go hang themselves. Why? Because of the shame in the society. Now, they don't need the constitution. They don't need the law. They need the society to regulate themselves. So when we put Article 1, and it is Article 1 for a reason, because others fall after Article 1, and we say the power of the people, the sovereign power of the people, first is vested in the people themselves, then to representative, leaders, where we then had a clear definition of what is direct democracy and representative democracy. We meant that the people themselves can regulate the leadership environment and fast forward tools of democracy as it is. So basically there's a lot that needs to be done. And I want to put probably this, that yes, we'll continue blaming our leaders. We give them the space and the resources to abuse without check. You know, I have said here, and I probably continue to say, that fear is important in leadership. Fear for the people is very important. Such that you, of course, the potential to do bad is available for everyone to exploit. But the fact that you don't do it because you fear the implication and repercussions is exactly the reason why you should fear the people. So part of good leadership is the fear for the people so that you don't engage in excesses, including abuse of the resources that are available for you to exploit on behalf of the people. And then number two, it should not be a luxury to get into leadership because of the compensation that you get. So we don't compensate you into a luxury mode. We compensate you for purposes of administering certain things we've given you in that leadership position, either elective or appointive, for the reason that we are not enriching you to become rich when you're there, which is different. And aptly that the wanton abuse of resources, especially by devolved units, is on account of the fact that they went there with the mentality of the previous administrative regime within the constitutional dispensation then, that once you're in leadership, you have the potential to get into riches. And obviously that spurred the flurry of abuse of resources and the plunder. We are not there in terms of the accountability element, but in terms of governance space and people taking resources to the ground, because there's a trickle-down effect of a percentage of it, depending on the degree of the culture of looting of an individual called the governor and his administration. It depends on that individual, not because we don't have a good environment. Public Finance Management Act was also a reaction for purposes of trying to manage that environment. Suffice it to say that eventually, yes, completeness of the Constitution realization has not been realized, but the good things that we have...
There's somewhat needs to be done. But let me ask you this to all of you. Has Wanjiku, he's talked about fear, Dr. He's talked about fear is also important in leadership. But is Wanjiku realizing that fear?
There's something Akilia said about... did you say that a country can do without a constitution?
Yes.
Or how did I get it?
Yes, yes.
I believe the basic work of a constitution is to keep order. of a country and to give guidelines.
And he talked about discipline. Some countries do not have a constitution, but they are disciplined enough.
But Kenyans, are we disciplined?
That's the question about Wanjiku.
What's our level of discipline?
Yes.
And then if you totally also, if we can say, for example, Kenya does not have a constitution, and then we give the power to the people, you know what happened? You know, we need to have guidelines, like the lawyers. What are they going to use to sue you? What laws are you going to break for you to be taken to jail? How your integrity, where are you going to go? Because if we do not have a constitution that is going to clearly bring out what your fault is, then what is that happening? And then if any country cannot do without a constitution, Kenya cannot do without a constitution, because we need it to give us guidelines and also to instill discipline. If we give power to the people, they are going to frustrate the leaders to a level, because you realize our elections, they go like after 5 years, we are going to an electioneering period. And you see, you have competitors. So your competitors, you may not be at fault as a leader, you may not be at fault, but your number two, the number 2, 3, 4 is going to mobilize the people against you as a leader, not because you have a problem, but because he wants to frustrate you, because he's equally frustrated that he did not get the seat that you have. And then one of the things that I believe our new constitution of the 2010 was supposed to be solving was about gender disparity. According to me, and then the introduction of the woman rep seat. And then I find like it's kind of an oppression to the woman. Because one, you see now, like when you have the county leaders, you have the governor, you have the deputy governor, and I think our constitution does not really outline what the duties of a deputy governor are. I don't know. I don't know even the deputy president whether it is there. I'm not very clear about the constitution. Wakili can help me on that. I'm not very conversant with that. But on the part of the woman rep, is that you see a woman rep covers a region equivalent to a governor, equivalent to a senator, and even the senators, I think they've been given a kitty just the other day. So their duties were not very well. So these are the loopholes in the 2010 constitution that I feel they are oppressive to Wanjiku in the sense that we were supposed to bring like gender balancing into parliament. At least the Senate adheres to that, a bit of it, and the county governments. But the National Assembly continues to work unconstitutionally, and nothing is being done to that. So the voice of Wanjiku is silenced in a way, because I ask, where would a woman rep, let's say now, for example, me, I come from Kisii County, there are 9 constituencies. I go campaign the same region as the governor, but my kitty is smaller than a member of parliament's kitty that is just having one constituency to take care of. The governor is so powerful right now as I speak. So I'm wondering, and I would like to, I don't know, I didn't bring out in I don't know, in the discussion, Mheshimiwa was there. Maybe he would answer me on that. Did you ever consider that?
You can donate your 1 minute directly before.
Yeah,
I'll come back to you.
It was a bit oppressive.
Right, Mheshimiwa, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay, just to clarify on that point, there are some things that we've gotten wrong, sincerely, Daktari. Members of parliament are supposed to be legislators, okay? You're supposed to be making the laws. You're not supposed to be running funds. You're not supposed to be making laws and executing them. So this concept of CDF, this concept of women rep having money, you know, is wrong. Because according to our constitutional model, the person who is supposed to execute is the governor. So if for law, you want to be running the functions of health, water, and I don't know what, in the county, you should run for governor. If you want to make laws, go to the Senate, go to the women rep, which is an affirmative action seat, go to the National Assembly, or go to the county assembly. And I think all these funds, as we are having this discussion about bursaries, we should also rethink, because the CDF, we brought it in our time. In our time, me, I was first elected under the old constitution. Under the old constitution, things were bad. Everything used to happen here in Nairobi. You're even told there's a road that has been built in your place when people have just stolen that money, and there's no road. So the MP became a center where you could actually do things that are felt on the ground. But then now we have a governor. You know, so what is the justification of having a member of parliament, you see? And if we must retain the CDF, just as we are talking about bursaries, if we have to retain bursaries, I mean, what is the logic of saying, let us remove bursaries from the CDF?
Okay.
But we say, let us keep the CDF. You know, in our time, those long time ago, there was no governor. So my prayer is that we should relook at all that. So what Daktari is saying is that there is a confusion there. There is a confusion. Who should bear the responsibility of governance and who should bear the responsibility of making laws and oversight?
Yeah.
For example, you cannot oversight yourself. You cannot be the person, you can't be the member of parliament, given the money, and then you are oversighting yourself again. You see, there's a problem there. But the governor is being oversighted by the Senate. And by the way, just to clarify, there's no fund for Senate. We were supposed to be allocated an oversight fund, but some issues there. And it started a bit, and then we have not continued with it because some issues are about the law there. So Senate doesn't have. And then I wanted to emphasize a point, just to clarify for Daktari, that it doesn't mean that the country is living without a constitution. Britain is the standing example. They don't have a written constitution, but they have a constitution, but they don't have it written. Okay? US, on the other hand, they have a written constitution. In Britain, there's no book you'll go and quote that this is the constitution. There's nothing like that. But people have principles that have been interpreted by the courts. These are the freedoms of the people, the right to life, the right to this and the other. And government must not carry out excessive whatever force and so on. And people have lived with that for centuries. Yeah. And in Britain today, you can't tell them to write their constitution. It is something they continue to live with. And which brings to the point that actually what we need is discipline in governance. We have a very big problem in terms of discipline in governance. Okay. And God helping us, we should get the right people to govern, because that's where the problem is.
Let's take a break before we have another problem. Now that we have another problem. Okay, I'm being reminded, in my home constituency, there is a road which was, quote unquote, tarmacked in 1987, only to be tarmacked in 2022. We saw a tarmac in 2022, but on paper it was tarmacked in 1980s. Yes. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. All right, welcome back. I actually evaded that problem. All right, so welcome back. Now, let me come back to Mark. So here we are, 14 years later, but there's that question of service delivery to the people. And you hear Wanjiku saying, we are paying taxes, we are doing this and that. But the governor will say, as again also put, I think it's also timely, on the front page of the Star newspaper, counties' cash crisis. We are still talking about that. There is that on-source revenue that counties must also get by themselves, but there is that cash transfer from the national government. Wanjiku doesn't care. At this point, Wanjiku doesn't care. I mean, he's paying taxes, he's buying bread and everything else, but hey, I need that service to be done to me. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. The current situation of what is happening within our systems of governance is something that is not good for our country. Because if you look at the constitution we have, it's one of the best constitution we have in the country. And as Wakil has rightly said, we don't need a constitution to run a country. Because...
but at least in Kenya we do.
Yes, in Kenya we do.
Mark, I will correct you on that.
But let me tell you one thing.
We must have one.
The core values of a leader is justice. You need to be just, you need to be honest, accountable, and fair. But you don't need a constitution to know that. Because if you look at what we have in our country, as I always say, we only have politicians, but we don't have leaders. Because if one goes to vie for a seat in our country, you will not be going there to vie for that seat because you want to serve the people. But majorly, 90% of our leaders, they go to seek for votes so that they can amass wealth and get that power. So that's why you find every now and then Wanjiku is complaining there is no service delivery. And the worst part of it is that our leaders don't want to listen to the cry of Wanjiku. Simply because once you get your seat, you settle down to that seat and you forget the mandate your people gave you. So the major problem has always been the type of people we elect, and the serious problem is our society, because the leaders we have are the reflection of our society. If you ask Mheshimiwa here, for you to get elected for a seat, you'll have to spend much. And immediately you sit on that seat, you'll want to maybe have, to get that money you spend in that election. So I think we need to have a paradigm shift of our society on the way we perceive our leaders, the way we elect our leaders, so that we can have a different set of governance. Because if you look at what we are discussing now about the constitution we have, there are so many misses, and there is so much challenges that can be solved by having honest leaders. But we find ourselves in the same hole every now and then. Look at what happened some few weeks ago. The Gen Zs came with some demands, requesting our leaders to have some sort of accountability on the way we run our affairs. But you saw what happened. We are still back on the same where we are. We talked of the Gen Zs talked about accountability. They talked about opulence, but up to now nothing has changed. So I think the problem has always been the kind of leaders we have, and if we can get, we can have a society where people will go to get those leadership positions to give service delivery, to give servant leadership. I think that will solve most of our problems. The Constitution will not solve our problem, because even the Bible we have, we fail even to follow the 10 Commandments. Everybody knows about what is supposed to be done, but you don't. We don't seem to.
How many do you follow?
We don't seem to follow it, me included. So I think it's a challenge to the society, and we need to, all of us, we need to have a change of how we
the paradigm shift you're talking about. Wakili, he talked about the issue of accountability, and let me come back to it. Actually, you're the person who started the issue of accountability. Let's talk about accountability and governance. And perhaps my question about Wanjiku, does Wanjiku really care? You know, do you care? You are part of Wanjiku, but does Wanjiku really care? The source of problems that you've talked about is accountability. That's number one, corruption, here and that. But we have that guiding principle that we have, that's the Constitution. Does Wanjiku really care about governance, about service delivery, so long as he pays the tax?
You see, we say in criminology and penology, study of crime and punishment, that crime is a contribution of society. So that if there's a district where there are many rapists, they just become rapists. They were formed into by society to become such. So that even in punishment, there is the issue of retribution, but the society takes responsibility for the corrective measures on account of the fact that it's responsible for that human person. The fact that that person was born into society and was nurtured and formed into a criminal, and criminal conduct by itself is the contribution of society into that crime, including the white-collar crimes that we talk of, non-accountability or lack of it, lack of accountability. So as has been said, which is correct, that we donate as society the leadership. The fall of democracy, however, it's a good governance, but very imperfect. Because after every cycle of 5 years, we call upon the people to divide themselves into fiefdoms of sorts, without guidance on how we are dividing them, for purposes of biases, tiny pots of biases here and there, so that then we can spring out of MCAs, members of parliament, senate, all that until we have the president. Those are products of biases. In a sense, the highest bias produces the leadership, which is this, that did you go to school with me? Are you from my ethnicity, my clan? Are you dark like me? Are you white like me? All that. So you can choose on race, you can choose on religion, you can choose. The same things that we condemn on can be the same biases that bring people into power. For instance, are you from my Christian denomination? Are you a Catholic? Are you Muslim? Are you this? And that biases you to put a person into leadership. And therefore, the actual choice is not informed by the principles that we have put in Article 10, the principles that we have put in the Constitution in terms of accountability. Suffice it to say, therefore, that what the cry for accountability may not be the very principle upon which we choose the leader, right? Okay. We choose him on certain, as like I've said, I call them the biases. So that the most biases would be what then we elect a person into leadership, all right? If you put, let me use the example of Tana River because my good friend is here. If you choose a Pokomo and a Wardei, for instance, and the Wardeis are more, then they get the governor, or the Pokomos get the governor, or you need to then find a way of forming a coalition so that you put a deputy who is from the other side, the other ethnic group, so then you have a formidable group that gets the leadership of a governor. And that happens also at the national level. So you have the Kalenjins and the Kikuyus coming together, and they include the Kambas because you get this position, and that it's all a debate that it's ethnic based. Yeah. The issue of Article 10 on accountability and governance is not the issue that we concentrate on at that time. But when now you move into leadership, we start saying a person formed by society, the example I've given earlier, who is basically has a propensity to crime, we put him into leadership. We have put a criminal into leadership through the folly of democracy and those features in democracy that do not save a person. We've tried, bring clearance certificate from police, DCI, ESCC. Those, yes, those you will get. But is it that deceiving that we need? So ultimately, therefore, we will continue to contribute and donate into leadership as a society, the good people who are the few, and the bad people who are the most. Okay. Now, coming to your question, and trying to answer it, will be this. We cannot eliminate crime. Certainly. And we need crime, some of us as lawyers, because we need to thrive in that. But look, we're in that profession, so we need guys to come. But
you are suggesting we do away with the Constitution. How are you going to get those jobs?
So without crime, there is no...
Yeah, how are you going to get those crimes?
Well, but let me put it this way. That, all right. Look, as a society, we will, the rule of law, governance, and putting up leadership there takes time. Takes time. Okay. You see the Gen Z movement, yes, it was never going to upset the establishment as was. In fact, it will not. But it is that call and the progressive voices over time that then eventually will change society. Society can change as an incident. It's not incidental.
Yeah.
It is progressive. You know, the things that we have in this country, for instance, media, the space for the media, this wasn't there. It wasn't there. But we're having this discussion and many other spaces that we're occupying as citizens because it was a progressive voice and we fought for it. So accountability, we've moved from other fights because we fought as citizens for many other things. We have gotten most of them.
Yes.
When we come to accountability, now you can see the movement of the Gen Zs was basically a voice of accountability that was never there in the yesteryears. That seems to be a voice that is going to be more progressive, creating space such that one day we'll either overhaul an entire legal regime and a law in that space, or in the alternative, then we instill discipline so that that which then will catapult people who are in discipline into leadership, then has to have a way of saving them to have the good people there. But I want to say this. The law also perceives once you're elected into leadership, you stop being a normal citizen. There are certain trappings that you get there of power, but it comes with accountability because the Constitution says you hold that office in trust for the people. We tested that under when we had the BBI case at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court pronounced itself probably in the non-legal terms. I would say they told Uhuru Kenyatta, you are not a normal citizen. So it is not a popular, you can't say you are heralding, you are starting a popular reform movement as the president. And the reason is, you are ruling the people, and then you want to propose as a mover, the prime mover, how you will rule the people. That can lead to abuse. There's a conflict there. Because you can be the one, like Mheshimiwa Mugatana has said, you can't oversight on yourself. So it can't be that you tell them, I will rule you this way. It is the people who say, you will rule this way. So when you are put into position, you stop being an ordinary citizen and you come with responsibilities. That's part of accountability.
You take a back seat. The issue of consultation, I want to get this. The issue of public participation is, you know, many cases have flopped in different courts because of lack of public participation. In fact, even in some instances, the president is told, you know what, hold, go back, consult the Mwananchi, talk to them, and once you are satisfied, come back. Do you think that is reflected, Dr. the issue of public participation, and what is the threshold, so to speak, to public participation?
On public participation, let me even, like I said, I talked about the bans. You know, I say the level of dishonesty in this country is just at another level. It's just on its own level. Among African countries, Kenya, the level of dishonesty beginning from the leaders, it's just at its own level. And then look at now the public participation. You know, there is a way, the one that, the people that are conducting this exercise, it begins from the one initiating the exercise. See, the one initiating this exercise, in one way or another, is just already corrupted. Are you saying? Yet you are not looking at a just outcome. That's why you get so many conflicts, like now what we are seeing in this country. You know, you see the voice of the vulnerable has not really been represented in this country, if you ask me. And if it is being represented, it could be in a very small fraction. Because we continue being dishonest, we become creative in our corruption. Because look at maybe like the government tenders. You may realize you are the one in charge of a department. Let's talk of our ministry. You know the tenders that are coming out, and you know very well there's not supposed to be conflict of interest, but you would find a way of doing most of those tenders using proxy companies. So who is going now? Who is going to stand for Wanjiku? Our country, I think we should first address the issue of corruption, dishonesty, and corruption, and I think, and then when you talk about religious leaders, if they are going to help this country, I don't know. And then more is raised about them. You know, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them. So we need to heal from dishonesty first.
So where are we? On a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't know. I do not want to be so... it's my country, I love it, but I think we are at 4.
Daktari? Hola saw
me, I have
a tarmac
seen, you know,
after devolution, 4 out of 10.
Me, I'm just telling you because I've not been in any leadership position in politics, so I'm able to think from outside the box. I'm able to think as me and the issues I've seen Kenyans are going through. Look at now, like the university student. What really happened?
Why,
you know,
why
it is so annoying.
Why 4 out of 10?
I'm saying the level of dishonesty, not only from the leaders, but Kenya as a whole. People get into leadership like it's my time to eat. It is, and this time is limited, and I have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. We need a paradigm shift. We need to think differently, which we are not thinking at the moment.
Okay, Mark, out of 1, on a span of 1 to 10, skill.
That is on the part of the constitution.
Where are we? Yes, 14 years later.
Yeah, 14 years later, I'll give it 2 out of 10.
Okay. All right.
That's worse.
Oh, that's worse.
That's worse.
I thought I saw it. Senator, this is it. I'm told that we are running out of time, but I'll give you 2 minutes kindly if you can.
Yes.
The role of Senate, have you achieved it? I'm told, take a minute. We are having a live function somewhere.
Okay. So I think the Senate has done pretty well. We started, the first Senate was trying to find its footing. But for now, I think the structures are there, and we have actually been carrying out the oversight function properly. Division of revenue has been going on very well.
Yes.
We are supposed to be fighting for counties, and I think we have done a sterling job on that area. Like this year, we had passed 400 billion as the equitable share for
400 billion.
Yeah, for the counties. So we have done our part, but there are challenges that still exist, and my prayer is that going forward, those challenges will be overcome. Senate has been able to bring some form of discipline to some of these county governments. The devolution committee constantly visits counties where there are problems between governors and county assemblies to try and solve. So in a sense, we have been a voice for the governors. Remember, in independence, the reason counties were dissolved, or the reason Majimbo was dissolved, is because the Senate was killed. And then they went for the regions to be dissolved. So let me just leave it there.
On a scale of 1 to 10?
I think we have done 5%. 5 out of 10.
A scale of 1 to 10?
I think we've done 6.
6.
We've done
Great.
6.
Okay, I'm Wanchiku. We are doing well. Generally, we are doing well. Wakili, Kithi, George, thank you so much for joining us. Evelyn Ogenda, Daktari, thank you so much. Mark,